Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Browns your first listen each and every day. It's Crossover Thursday. I'm Louis DiBiase of the Locked On Eagles podcast, joined by Jeff Lloyd of the Locked On Browns podcast, getting you ready for Eagles Browns. We're brought to you today by Prize Picks. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL in all lowercase to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Big game for both of these teams. Jeff, the Eagles at 2-2, coming off the bye week. This will be the first time they're under 500 in 2 years, with Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts running things if they lose this game. The Cleveland Browns, a playoff team last year, reeling right now at 1-4. And I think it's probably obvious for you what the biggest storyline is in Cleveland, but gotta ask you anyway, the elephant in the room, what is the biggest story for the Browns right now?
I got to admit, I'm a little dumbfounded right now because I think they're holding one, well, maybe not holding it up, but they're giving one position more of the benefit of the doubt than they would any of the other 21 starting spots. Mm-hmm. Look, if the play was this subpar from any of the other 21 starters on this team, I have a hard time believing that a change would not be made.
Right.
And I know it's difficult, everybody knows what's involved, obviously, the amount of financially, the compensation. But look, that's over. But we're talking about two Ivy League graduates in your general manager and your head coach. We are talking about a billionaire businessman. I just don't understand how all these people can look at this and say, we'll try them out again. Look, the last we saw of him in 2023 certainly, was the best of him, that Baltimore Ravens second half. That's fine.
Yeah.
But that's almost a calendar year ago now at this point. But you're also, you look at the other 52 guys, Myles Garrett is dinged up. Most likely he's going to look at postseason surgery on his feet, an issue he had as a child, out there giving you everything he can. I just don't know how you look at everybody else and say, we're going to do this. And then the other thing is you already punted a season once on Deshaun Watson. 2022, you knew there was going to be a heavy suspension. Then the suspension became even longer than it originally was supposed to be. So you punted 2022. 23, he played well. He was 5-1 as a starter. So, I still think the Browns probably would have went to the playoffs if Deshaun finished that season. Look, Joe, it was magical. It was fun. I still think the Browns would have achieved the same thing. But now, are you going to punt on another season on a guy that you're paying this amount of money to? How do you tell that to the other 52 guys in that locker room? How do you tell that to your city, your fan base? How do you tell it to the other everybody? It makes no sense.
Because Jeff, you were a playoff team last year. There's so much talent on this roster. It's not like it's a young team that's rebuilding. You can justify being patient for multiple years. I mean, like you said, how do you tell Myles Garrett and Amari Cooper and even like the other veteran role players like a Rodney McLeod, who was a Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl champion, and Jordan Hicks, that this is the route they're taking? Is it just stubbornness and going down with the ship, or do you think the brass truly still believe in Watson, that he can be the guy from early 2023? Coming from an Eagles perspective, where we've seen Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts have these big years, and you hold on to that and hope eventually that comes back, and a long time passes, and a year in the NFL can be a lifetime. Like, why is it that they're not pulling the plug on this? Considering it's, this is the thing, Jeff, it hasn't just been like okay or not what they expected. Has he been the worst quarterback in football through the first month and a half?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And I even prefaced it the other day, and I said, you're telling me that any other quarterback on any roster in the NFL right now could not give you similar production? It's been 5 games. He hasn't thrown for 200 yards yet. I think part of it is maybe they are now looking in the rear view and saying, what did we change last year? Why did we go and basically shred our offensive staff? Mm-hmm. You want to know what? We got to the playoffs. We went 11-6 in the regular season, and we started 5 different quarterbacks. And we went and changed everything. So maybe some of it is their own basically, guilt that maybe they made some changes that they shouldn't have made. But you cannot look at this right now. But the other thing is, what is a guy like Jameis Winston here for? He was here for, God forbid, maybe he would have to play.
Yeah.
Well, you're 1-4. Your season is most likely probably on the line this Sunday. And then maybe he doesn't play this week, which I don't think he will. And you look at another guy like Nick Chubb, who is coming off a second catastrophic injury, and you're going to bring him back at 1-5, which they will because he's only on a 1-year deal. You're going to bring him back at 1-5, and all of a sudden now, what are you going to expect to go 10-1? I mean, it's
Right.
unrealistic because this was the part of the schedule where they were supposed to get fat. The big boys are coming, all the division games, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Dolphins will be a different version of themselves when they see them later in the season. Just none of it makes any sense whatsoever, Lou. And, for a whole bunch of guys who are a heck of a lot smarter than me, I feel like the old, Denzel Washington in the movie Philadelphia explained this to me like I'm a 4-year-old.
Is Stefanski being handcuffed in this situation, or are they in unison? Like, are they together with this decision, or is it just ownership not letting them pull the plug? It's fascinating to me because, Jeff, I thought Philadelphia was interested in Watson a few years ago, and the rumors is that Watson didn't want to waive his no-trade clause to come to Philly because he didn't want to replace Jalen Hurts, who's his guy. And so I look at your situation, and I don't envy you. I'm like, this would be a tough cover. Even if Watson was good, morally, that's something I was nervous about. But it's been so opposite. Like, it's not only just all the moral parts of this story, but he's just been so bad. It's a fascinating story to me because I thought I was going to have to cover it for a few years.
The one thing, and this is something I had talked about well before he had actually taken a snap.
Yeah.
What happens when you were such an unliked person?
Yeah.
Like, how do you go through every aspect of your life? And then, look, I mean, you can be a guy who's just got an absolute black soul. And look, there's plenty of people in this world who live their lives like that. But when all these things are said about you every single day, and what certain people look, there's people who, I don't want this guy within 100 yards of my family.
Right.
This is the way people speak about this man. How do you just all of a sudden just go back about it? It's not like Michael Jordan. Oh, he's a degenerate gambler. Well, it's not hurting me. It's not hurting anybody else. It is a whole different circumstance here. And how do you overcome that? And maybe it's just taking that edge which made him this great quarterback, this great elite athlete. And maybe it's just something that he can't psychologically overcome.
Yeah.
But right now, he is not even a mediocre player in the NFL. He's just not. And, for this team and this franchise, and look, they wanted to have a successful year. They're talking about, obviously, these big new stadium plans. And there's just so much here that just basically doesn't make any sense because it crisscrosses over in this, that, and the other thing. And it's just for a team. And I opened up, the show after the game against Washington. I just opened it up with the definition of insanity. It's basically repeating the same thing without any change and expecting the results to change. There is no reason whatsoever you think any of this is going to change right now.
I don't know how they do it from a financial standpoint. It really felt like, Jeff, just to put it plainly, they sold their soul a few years ago, and they weren't able to get quarterback right for so long, and they said, yeah, this might morally not be okay. And I think the Eagles might have been willing to sign this deal with the devil too, and that's what makes me a little uncomfortable about it with the Eagles and giving them credit for even the position they've been in with Jalen Hurts over the years, because I think a lot of it was luck and out of their control. But it's so tough. It's like, if you believe in karma, I guess this is kind of proof of that.
Yeah, I mean, but there's other factors that nobody thinks about. It wasn't just an 11-game suspension.
Yeah,
you factor in the 17 games he didn't play the year before.
Right.
So I mean, maybe it was still 16 at the time. So 27, 28 games before he had taken the field again, which for a guy who was such a great player, that was 2 college seasons plus. There were just so many factors to put into it. But right now, look, I don't think they care about the money. I don't think they care about the compensation, all of that stuff. I think what they care about what they care about is that they essentially have the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now. Mm-hmm. And if that's not enough for them to say, hey, for the sake of change, let's just play. And look, if Jameis Winston went out there and threw for 159, had 2 turnovers, got sacked 4 times, you could say, you want to know what? We were wrong about it, our entire roster. But you owe it to the other 52 guys in that locker room to say, hey, look, I can't change and sub in and out all 22 of yous, but we're going to try with the guy at top. And let's just see what happens. And if you're not willing to do that, you deserve everything that's going to come your way.
No, I totally agree. And Jeff, I don't think just the pressure is on the Browns in this game on Sunday. The Eagles coming off the bye at 2-2. There's a lot riding on this one for them as well. And their quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Storylines for the Eagles as we continue. Crossover Thursday right here on Locked On Eagles and Locked On Browns. Episode of Crossover Thursday on the Locked On Eagles and Locked On Browns podcast is brought to you by Z-Biotics, the pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, believe it or not, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you're going to feel better tomorrow. Like every time I have a pre-alcohol drink before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Sunday morning, I can still go on that hike, get ready for the Eagles game, as long as I make Z-Biotics the pre-alcohol drink, the first one, before I, of course, then drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep, and enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnNFL at checkout. Z-Biotics is back with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Guys, today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm going to Eagles Browns on Sunday, got my tickets through Game Time, a great price, but I also made sure I got a great view. Get your panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets through Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Crossover Thursday right here on the Locked On Eagles, Locked On Browns podcast. Louis DiBiase joined by Jeff Lloyd. Eagles-Browns, a big game, Jeff, I would say, for both. I don't want to say like the season's on the line for both teams. I think for the Browns, it definitely is. You're 1-5. 1-4 is already a tough spot, but 1-5 is even worse. For the Eagles, though, they cannot afford to come off a bye week where you have A.J. Brown back, Devontae Smith returns to the lineup, Lane Johnson returns, and you lay another egg after that Tampa game, especially against a Cleveland Browns team that, yeah, this isn't going to be a cakewalk. They've got a lot of talent. But there's really no excuse for the Eagles to come out flat here in this game, especially against, as we talked about for 10 minutes, a quarterback that just seems completely dead in the water right now. So I do hope Vic Fangio has a much better plan for Watson than he did Baker Mayfield a couple weeks ago.
Well, I mean, the plan is simple. Pressure him early. And then you don't have to pressure him anymore after that, because the biggest problem is, and look, to be fair, he's being pressured a ton. He is. But the problem is he thinks there's pressure when there's not pressure, and he's taking himself off of reads, or he's breaking the pocket. And because he's so concerned about the potential pressure, he's now rolling himself into what would be his throwing lanes. And all of it right now, it's just difficult from that standpoint. But, for the Eagles, I mean, look, you come off the bye, you're healthy. I think you had one guy who was actually listed as limited today in practice. Meanwhile, the injury reports today were Eagles and then Browns, and then you had to scroll up and make sure you got everybody on Cleveland's injury report. But it's not like it's like, oh no, they're 1-4. Oh man, they could be, the wounded dog in the corner of the room. They're not. I mean, they're like the dog that's going to roll over and just say, yeah, I'm wounded, but could you just rub my belly and put some water on the floor? I mean, the other biggest thing I have with this is just how much everybody is bought in. Because look, if you don't think your quarterback's it's really, really difficult for the rest of these guys. And you can't go through the motions in the NFL, in Philly with a spark, and it's weird because I've, being where I am located, obviously I see every Philly game there is. Yeah. It was always such a, every series a different running back, or you changed it up every 2 or 3 plays, but they invested heavily. And look, this Saquon thing is going to work for them. You need, certainly Jalen to get back to where he was 2 years ago. Defense, you're still going through it, working in new pieces, this, that, and the other thing. I cannot believe Brandon Graham is about to play his 200th career game.
It's unbelievable.
That is an amazing number for anyone that plays in the trenches. totally, just blows my mind. And then there's the problem that the Cleveland offensive line and the interior offensive line, they've struggled all year with good defensive tackle play. Well, guess what? Philly's got 2.
Yeah, and I really hope this is a game that Jalen Carter kind of shows again why he's one of the best interior pass rushers in football. I mean, again, it's very up and down with Jalen still so far. He needs to put it all together and be more consistent, but you've seen that he can wreck ball games. I mean, again, that Saints tape 2 weeks ago was unbelievable. So I really hope...
Very similar to Dexter Lawrence versus the Browns. No doubt. No question about it.
I really hope that they don't come out as flat as they have been the majority of this year on the defensive line, because like you said, if you can get to Deshaun Watson, you're going to win this football game, especially if you don't have to blitz. And the one thing that was frustrating, and I'm going to be watching closely too, is Vic Fangio, it felt like he had his corners way too off the line of scrimmage against Tampa. And Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback, but it felt like regardless of the situation, they were just giving him way too much respect. So like that's a key for me, Jeff, is like do not respect Deshaun Watson in this game. Like I don't want to give him any free space. Don't give Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore 10 yards of cushion off the line of scrimmage. Make Deshaun Watson make tough throws. He has not been accurate this year, and don't let him have a clean pocket. I know that sounds obvious, but it's been something with Vic Fangio's defense this year that's been way too Jekyll and Hyde.
And look, the Browns, the first drive of the game usually has some potential to it. But after that, things just get out of hand. The one thing, and this is what's aggravating, because the one thing you saw last year with Joe Flacco is, and it's been a pet peeve of mine with Kevin Stefanski throughout his entire, just go vertical more. Yeah. And you don't have to hit them. It's the threat of going vertical, which loosens up coverage. Your tight ends can go eat. Your backside of the backfield can get a little more run. They don't do it. And, we're trying to evaluate this Watson tape. And look, there are guys open, but a lot of times it's like, well, that's great. He's going to have to go, and he's going to have the precision of Greg Maddux, because everybody is within 12 yards of the line of scrimmage, the defenders, the offensive players. So now you need elite pass protection. You need pinpoint, accuracy. You need players to break tackles. You need run after the catch. It's frustrating, because this is one of the reasons Jerry Jeudy was brought in here. It's even more frustrating because this team has literally invested into 6 wide receivers over 3 off seasons, trying to redo that entire room. And that's why you need to see the other quarterback. I know Jameis Winston can throw vertical. I'm a Florida State fan. I've seen, Jameis Winston for a long time. You have to threaten. And look, it's going to lead to an interception or 2. Sure. Look, we're turning the ball over anyway. So I'd rather turn it over 45 yards down the field than have the ball get knocked out of his hand in the backfield. You have to try something, anything. And it's got to be different than what it was. Right now, their best running back is Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford didn't get a carry last week in the first half. You got your season on the line, and you're going to ride or die with Dante Foreman?
See, this is why I'm not, like Jeff, again, I respect a lot of the talent on the Browns roster, but this is why I won't accept, if the Eagles defense does not come out like they did against New Orleans. If you don't do what
Washington did last week, and maybe even if it's only 34-20.
And context matters to me, too.
You did disappointed.
Context matters to me, too. If they can't just have a typical 2023, 2024 type of win where they barely get by and they make a worse team look almost as good as them and they pull it out in the fourth quarter. Like, again, they're coming off a bye week where they're extremely healthy. They have the better matchup. They're at home. I want, for the first time in 2 years, a complete 4-quarter game where they just say from the jump, oh, we've got control of this game. We're going to have a lead and we're going to dominate. They haven't scored a point in the first quarter this year, and every game's been one possession, whether it goes one way or another. So, and didn't you say, the Browns look pretty beat up, right? Denzel Ward didn't practice today, and what are we looking at for the injury report for Cleveland?
Well, right now, their top 3 safeties, Juan Thornhill is currently on short-term injured reserve. Did not have the window open today to return to practice. Let's see. Grant Delpit, currently with a concussion. He was not practicing today. Ronnie Hickman, you would probably call your 4th safety. He didn't practice today with an ankle injury. Denzel Ward did not practice today. Myles Garrett, this has kind of been the MO right now. You're just doing everything you can to get Myles to game day. He's dealing with an injury. Have to be, rectified in the offseason. One of the, so You're not sure on him. Maybe you get rookie Mike Hall back this week. He has not played yet. That's obviously not injury related. That was off-field related. Jordan Hicks, obviously former Philadelphia Eagle, did not play last week. Trying to work him back in. I will be honest, though, the linebacker play of the Browns is probably one of the best things they have going for them right now.
Yeah, I was looking at the PFF grades. It looks pretty good for all three of those guys.
Jordan Hicks has been a fantastic addition, which was one I loved, and I really said at the time, I don't think people are really going to understand, because finally you had somebody who was on the level of JOK's ability and production. But honestly, Devin Bush has been really good for them the last couple of weeks. But if there is no Denzel Ward, all of a sudden now Martin Emerson's your number one cornerback. Martin Emerson's having a really, really rough third year. If anybody watched Diami Brown, that was the guy who got smoked. It was Martin Emerson. He's had a rough year this year. So you don't really love the fact that, he's on either A.J. Brown or certainly on Devontae Smith. They're just banged up. Offensive line, they actually, for the first time, I think I know what the offensive line is going to be. We're recording on Wednesday. I actually know what the offensive line is going to be on Sunday. This may be the first time the entire season I actually know what the starting offensive line is going to be.
Yeah.
But look, you can't use injuries as an excuse. And look, there's a ton of things that are not right with this team right now as far as on-field performance. But you got to go to the top. And look, it's the NFL is QB is everything league. It always is. It always has been. It always will be. And right now, that is the one thing, and that is the one return on the investment they are not getting. And, look, if they want to make this crazy and just let this go the way it is, I think they already hold the number 3 overall draft pick in the 2025 NFL draft, which blows my mind, because I figured we were going to be talking about winning the AFC North.
I know. But
if this is the ship they want to sink, I mean, there's the old line of it's their ship to wreck. Well, I mean, sounds kind of foolish to me, but I mean, if you guys want to wreck it, I mean, go ahead, Gilligan's Island it, man.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Keys to victory coming up next is Crossover Thursday, Locked On Eagles and Locked On Browns. Locked On Eagles and Locked On Browns is brought to you today by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. On FanDuel, you can get everything. If you got a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. And you're going to get started with $200 back in bonus bets, guaranteed. All you got to do is place your first $5 bet. So just take the Eagles or Browns money line, maybe the over on A.J. Brown receiving yards, maybe it's the over on Saquon Barkley rushing yards, take an anytime sack for Jalen Carter. Again, this is for the Eagles side. If you're on the Browns side, maybe take the over on Amari Cooper receiving yards. All you got to do is bet $5. You're going to get $200 back in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Jeff, let's wrap up Crossover Thursday with some keys to victory. Eagles-Browns Sunday at 1 o'clock at Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles trying to get to 3-2. The Browns trying to save their season here at 2-4 and just keep their playoff hopes alive and try to make life of this season for sure. And again, you mentioned they're pretty banged up right now. The quarterback is not good. Things are just not going well for the Browns. If they did pull off a victory on Sunday on the road against a 2-2 Eagles team that really needs this football game, how do they do it in your eyes?
It's going to have to go back to, most of the way they won in 2023. It's going to have to be that their defense just went out and was outstanding. Their defensive line just destroyed. The thing with their defensive line last year is they were so great at obviously harassing the quarterback, but they blew up the running game. This team gang tackled last year. So guess what? When you had a missed tackle, it wasn't that big, because you want to know why? I may have missed you, but there was a dude right on my hip. He got you. But that is not. And a lot of it now, it's one guy in space, which scares the living daylights out of me, because they have not faced a guy with the athletic ability of Saquon Barkley to this point yet in any of the games they've played. So that is certainly a bigger headache, an exasperating headache that is already, basically expanding upon. That is something that has been an issue to this point. If you don't have Denzel Ward, now Greg Newsome becomes a starter, and I don't have that issues with that. But, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, nothing but one-on-ones all day long with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The mobility factor from Jalen Hurts, because obviously it looks like his legs are a lot healthier this year than they were last year. And there were times last year where I was screaming at the Eagles, what are you doing? He's banged up, and it's your first drive of the game, and it's 3rd and 8, and you're asking him to run the ball. But now he can run when he's choosing to, because he feels better. He's healthy enough to do it. This game just scares me. And the other thing is, it's their third straight road game. Their first one, they played close with the Raiders. They got smoked last week by Washington. Yeah. And now here's the third one. And the problems and the issues just continue to exasperate and just get bigger and more as far as number-wise of issues. And now you have a team where Philly, and look, it's not always great to have that early bye week, but I think there's a good chance they wouldn't have had maybe Brown or Smith or either one or the other, or maybe
I think they
both.
needed this one. Yeah.
So they got that extra week early. Now your offense is going to go out there on full tilt talent-wise. I mean, it would take a miracle, but if it's going to happen, it will be because of the defense.
Yeah, and I think it would also be because the Eagles just continue to shoot themselves in the foot, and that's what they've been doing all year, and that's why I think for the last 2 years they haven't been able to win a convincing football game where they win by multiple scores and they have the lead the entire time. I mean, they barely held a lead this year, Jeff, even at 2-2. So a lot of that's because they have the second or third worst turnover differential in football, and that has a lot to do with Jalen Hurts, and the turnovers are a lot worse than last year. He's turning over the ball in his own zone, in the red zone, just plays where you got to have it, and he's not taking advantage. So for the Eagles, just to make sure they win this football game, get out of your own way. Stop with the turnovers and start faster. Like, there's no excuse, again, coming out of a bye week that they shouldn't have a good first 15 plays where they can get a lead. They haven't scored a point in the first quarter this year, and that's just unacceptable for the talent they have. So I think the Eagles, again, the way to win this football game is just get out of your own way. And then on defense, again, don't show Deshaun Watson respect. I really it drives me nuts. It wasn't just Vic Fangio, but it was Sean Desai last year, and it was Jonathan Gannon. Even Jim Schwartz in the past at times just would get chewed up by inferior quarterbacks. And I just hope that, Watson has looked so bad this year. I really hope the Eagles don't continue to let these quarterbacks that look terrible against other defenses look like stars against them. So I'm not saying that's what I predict, that he's going to light up this defense, especially with Cooper DeJean starting in the slot now. I love that decision. But again, it's been hard to have a lot of faith in this defense after the first 4 games.
There's no question about it. And, look, you need to get better. You need to improve as the year goes on. It looks like the Browns, they are getting less talented as the weeks go on. Philly, maybe it was a break at the right time. And, hey, that's always the type of thing. And, that would be the plan for Philly. It's going to be a tough one for the Browns. And, if it's not this week, it might not matter.
Yeah, that's a great point. Eagles-Browns Sunday at 1 o'clock. 1-4 versus 2-2. Big game for both. Thanks so much for tuning into Crossover Thursday right here on the Locked On Eagles and the Locked On Browns podcast. For Jeff Lloyd, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you next time.